how would you handle a situation between employees such as the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole altercation?
Oh man, the video was just so cringe, man. I mean, a loaded punch on my guy Jordan Poole. Listen, this is a tough situation, but for me, Draymond would have to go. I think Draymond is the heartbeat of the team, and he has been for years. But I think at this point, man, with that type of action, he's overstayed his welcome. You just can't have that type of interaction, employee to employee. You can't have that type of friction because if you keep those two guys in a locker room or in an office or whatever the context of the question might be, the problem becomes is Jordan Poole is an upcoming budding star. I mean, this guy's good. And what type of impact does that have on his psyche, on his ability to perform, having to worry about an altercation with Draymond every time? And Draymond's not his, max contract self anymore either. So, I would have Draymond shipped right out of the team, man, and we'd get somebody to fill that gap and keep it moving.
All right, all right. Second place last round was Steve Trang. So, boss man, your thoughts on Draymond Green and Jordan Poole?
It's simple, man. He's gone. Like he's gone now. Like we're not even like he didn't even get suspended. He's gone now. And am I going to qualify this? 100%, right? Because Michael Jordan did the same exact thing to Steve Kerr. Mm-hmm. I'm not trading Michael Jordan. Steph Curry does this to Jordan Poole. I'm not trading Steph Curry, right? These guys are like once in a generation talents. Draymond Green, you're gone, right now. So, but I think in a real world application, right, in our offices, I think everyone should have the right to go to work without being feared or being fearful of getting punched in the face. And that's a pretty reasonable expectation within the organization. So I think it's really simple. I think he's gone. Not only is he suspended and fined, but he is on the bench until we find someone else to take him on.
Okay. Eric Brewer, your thoughts?
He's got to go. But I think I would challenge the concept that because he's not a max player or he's not Michael Jordan or he's not Steph Curry, that he somehow is held to a different standard than everybody else. I would push back and say, if it's Michael Jordan, if it's Steph Curry, they still have to go. The way that you respond to this as an organization establishes what you stand for. Now, I can also tell you that it also has to do with the value system inside of that organization. If this happens on the 1989 Pistons, it's no big deal, right? I tend to think also, if you think about Golden State and where they're located and how they operate, I'm not sure this fits inside of their value system, but whatever you decide to do here establishes what you stand for. So he's got to go, but I think if it was Curry, he'd have to go too. I don't waver on my moral barometer based on how good or how average you are at your job.
Okay, good round. Leon, your thoughts?
Well, we talk quite often about core values, right? And last I checked, none of us have getting punched in the face as part of our core values, right? And so if I'm putting this from a team perspective, or of my own personal employees, someone walks in and says, hey, this employee punched another employee in the face. I don't care who employee A is, they've got to go, to Eric's point. Then I see the video of it. It doesn't change mine, but I definitely know he's got to go for sure after seeing that video. I would have said the same thing before I saw it, but the sucker punch, the way that he went at him was even more so, regardless of who that individual is. So when it comes to, to Eric's point, I couldn't care less who the individual is that is doing the punching. You just can't walk into work and feel free to punch someone in the face. Got to go.
Yeah. Okay. Now the voting is about to open. I do have a question for you guys and your opinions for the discussion. Are we not drawing enough attention to the fact that Jordan Poole was the first person to place hands on him? I'm just curious what you guys think about that.
That's a great question. Eric, go ahead. I see you. Go ahead.
That was actually the second act of intimidation. Draymond walked from across the court and got chest to chest in his face. Right. He created separation. That is not the same as, then he ran up on him and snuck him. Really, he didn't. Where I'm from, if you throw up your set, I know how to prepare myself. When you walk up to someone aggressively in an atmosphere that is not conducive to fighting, that's one notch below sneaking somebody from behind. Again, which doesn't make it right or wrong, but it's not like they both threw up their hands. We're going to box. We're going to settle this. The team let it happen and he won. It was an overly aggressive behavior when he had plenty of time to let that unfold and make a responsible decision. But that was actually him pushing was the second move, not the first.
Okay, I appreciate the dissection of that situation for sure.
Yeah, and to add to this, that lunge is specifically like he created space, and then Draymond came back into him and snuck him, right?
I want to add some
I
color.
want to add one more thing.
Later on
I want to add one more thing real quick, though. Bob Myers is known in the NBA as one of the best general managers. Clearly, he's built a great team. Most of those players have been drafted and developed through that system. But he got it wrong on this one. He got it wrong on it because he said Draymond being Draymond, right? If you are a leader in an organization and it's your company, you can't say that's just Draymond being Draymond, right? You have to address it and say, we do not tolerate that. We do not allow that. And if you're not going to go to the level of firing them, there has to be repercussions of that behavior.
Go ahead, Chris, and then I'm going to add some color commentary to Leon's point.
Yeah, I just think it's a tough conversation because at the end of the day, I think Leon and Eric are right, but at the same time, I'm not cutting MJ, right? I don't think any of us would have cut Kobe or MJ or whatever the case might be. I think we're in a different era in terms of how things are generally handled. But somebody of Draymond's caliber, man, is just completely uncalled for at the end of the day. And I do hear Leon and Eric, but, you know, for me, man, I mean, Draymond just complete lapse of judgment, whether it's ego, pride, whatever the case might be. I definitely think he's got to go if you got somebody like that. But when you got a ringer on your team like an MJ, we might just got to set up a ring in the office, man, and everybody got to throw hands and get this thing figured out because, I mean, I don't know if I could cut him out the door and let him go, but that's just me.
Yeah, there's a guy in my office who has a ring in his backyard to settle disagreements. So, like, hey, you feel strongly about this? Both of you guys put on your gloves, go address this, you know? And I think that's, you know, a more appropriate way to handle it if they choose violence. So I just want to add something real quick because, you know, Leon's talking about there was a shove and then there was like a lunge, right? So the way I broke my hand in college was this same exact scenario. So someone came up to me, chest to chest. We're playing basketball. I didn't know what the heck was going on. It was a hard foul, right? But this guy was kind of in a mood and he was already chippy the whole day, and he came up to me chest to chest, and I was like, it was a foul, right? I get it. It was a hard foul, but there's no and ones on me. That's just the way I play. Leon knows this. Eric knows this. There's just no and ones on me. And so right after he got chest to chest with me, he actually shoved me. And I don't know exactly what happened. All I know was after the shove, there was a haymaker punch to the face, right? That's all I remember. So I think that it's easy to jump to judgment. But, you know, there's these things that happen. Your brain's obviously in fight or flight mode. You know, you're not thinking logically. It's like, I got shoved. What is the appropriate reaction? It's things happen in a snap. So I'm not saying he's right. I think he's totally in the wrong.
Right.
I'm just saying it's easier to look at it from afar than, you know, what happens in.
I think we all agreed that he had to go. To Chris's point, there's a great documented story in a book called Three Ring Circus, where Phil Jackson, Kobe, and Shaq had this very thing happen in practice, where those two stars, mega stars, fought in practice, and no one would let go, obviously. So there's precedent in the NBA of fighting. Kenny the Jet Smith came out and said this happens all the time. But we were asked the question of handle the situation between employees.
Right,
That's not our culture. We're not allowing someone to punch someone on our teams.
And I think the not an excuse, but the reasoning of that this has happened before. Listen, there's lots of things that happened 25 years ago that now that we know better is not acceptable today. So to say this happened in the 90s or this happens all the time is such a bad reasoning as to why it should be allowed today. Everything's different today. The way that we drive, the way that we treat our children, the way that we interact with each other, social media, video. This video wouldn't have existed 25 years ago.
Great point.
So it was not okay back then. It was easier to hide it, and now we can't hide it, and it has to be dealt with.
I mean, take a step back. Look at Aaron Donald attacked somebody else with a helmet. He's still playing. He attacked him with a helmet in practice. Still playing.
Aaron Donald, man. It's Aaron Donald. But Eric's right, though. This is the hard part about these situations. Eric's right. But at the same time, man, like we all play ball. And what we all know at the same time is that it can get pretty heated. It can get pretty confrontational. And I've been in plenty of fights playing basketball or playing football growing up and then shook hands and been good with the person right afterwards. So we don't know the entire context, but what we can visually see, yeah, man, we might got to set that ring up, man, if somebody lunged at me like that, man. If Steve Trang put hands on me like that, man, like he did back in college, man, we might got to swap it out.
Mark my words. Mark my words. This will affect them during the season. At some point, this is going to come back up that their chemistry is off.
We saw it.
I promise you that's going to come up.
We saw it with Draymond and KD.
Yeah.
And there was
cost
no
them
punch
2 championships.
There wasn't even a punch thrown in that one.
It was an emotional punch.
Emotional punch.
Yeah. KD got his feelers hurt.
Just as damaging. I agree. Great second round. That was a great second round. The voting, it looks like CJ is slightly in the lead ahead of Steve. It should close with a CJ round win. So that would be another one for the U to take home. CJ, how you feeling after 2?
Oh, man, I feel great, man. Listen, man. It's never. I'll tell you this, Weasel. It's never hard, man, being a winner, man.
Here we go.
All right.
My man walks into the store and is the 100th shopper every time he walks in. It's like, oh, man, I feel good. I got championship rings every time I walk in.
Every time I get a scratch-off ticket, it hits, man. It hits. Man.
Well, if you're into sports betting, let me know because I need some hitters for tonight's game, please. All right. If you're winning like that, put me on a little bit.
Hey, Weasel, before we go to the next one, RDC, I think that's the comedian. He did a really good bit on this. If you guys haven't had a chance to check it out. Right, but basically it was like Steve Kerr saying to like Draymond's like, you can't do that, and Draymond's response was like, Jordan punched you in the face, you won a championship. Like, clearly, I can do this anyway.